following is a presentation of Disruption Networks.
Hey, baseball fans, are you counting down the days to opening day? Well, Disruption Network has you covered. The Baseline, the D's own baseball podcast, is back with Season 2 and all new episodes all season long. Sunday nights, 7:30 p.m. on the D. Get your baseball fix as JP and SPG run down the news and notes around Major League Baseball. Get fantasy tips, player rankings, team previews, interviews, and more. You can catch the Baseline and all of Disruption Network's programming by checking out DisruptionNetwork.net, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Facebook, and Stitcher. Keep it inside the Baseline all season long, only on the D.
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broking everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Hey, Disruption Network. This is Mike Sacco, the general manager at Nye Volkswagen of Rome. If you don't know me by name, it's only because you have not received the best deal. There's only one reason to leave Utica, and that's to come see me in Rome and get the best deal on your next new, pre-owned, or certified VW. Mention that you heard this ad from Disruption Network and receive $250 off your next vehicle purchase. You'll know why our customers say, I love my Nye VW. Come see us at 5865 Rome Taberg Road in Rome, or visit us online at nyvwofrome.com.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish, and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
The Disruption Network is making moves. For upcoming events, news, interviews, and new daily programming, keep in the loop with us at DisruptionNetwork.net. Like, follow, and subscribe to all our social media. And check out all our podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Get up on the D, DisruptionNetwork.net.
The following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Baseline. Play ball!
Good evening, everybody. What's going on? We are back.
We're back.
Season 2 of the Baseline, JP, SPG, live from Disruption Network, Utica, New York. And it is still cold out, but we're about to get warm because we're going to be talking about the 2019 season coming up. We're in spring training.
Yeah, man.
Excited to be back here.
Back, and it feels good. It feels good to be back in the studio here at Disruption Network, and really excited to talk about things that happened in the offseason since our last show. There's been a whole bunch of stuff, rule changes, big contracts, Hall of Fame, you name it. There's a whole bunch of stuff to cover. So we're going to talk a lot about what happened since our last show, and we'll talk a little bit about what we think for the 2019 season here too. And, yeah, it feels good to be back and to be talking some baseball here in the middle of March here in central New York.
Mid-March.
Right when you want to start thinking about sunny days and warm weather, and baseball is definitely a sign of the end of winter is hopefully near. We know, as with last year, that can creep into baseball season a little bit, but at the very least, it's good to know that there is light at the end of that tunnel, and spring and summer are right around the corner here, JP.
I'm so excited. We're coming into a new season, new sponsors, new opportunities. Man, we're going to get into some Hall of Fame talk later, but one of the highlights of our summer coming up is we're going to get to be down in Cooperstown for Hall of Fame induction weekend, and Mo's going in amongst others, and we're going to get to all of that coming up here soon. But so much to talk about in this off season. We're going to jump right into it. Mainly the free agent.
Yeah, I mean that's
market.
The biggest story right there, and how long it took the big guys, your Machados and Harpers to sign. And some of them, like Craig Kimbrell and Dallas Keuchel, still without a team, still have not signed a contract. And here we are, middle of March. It's the earliest opening day ever this year, too. March 28th, opening day. All teams in action. And we're running out of time here for Kimbrell and Keuchel to be ready to go for the beginning of the season. So still seeing that free agency delay. You started seeing it a little bit last year with your Jake Arrietas and Greg Holland's kind of signing late into spring training, or even when the regular season had just begun, with no time to really get ready for the season. And it showed a lot with a guy like Arrieta, and look what happened with Greg Holland. So it should be really interesting to see when they do sign how that affects them going into the season here.
Worth noting that we are actually, only 10 days away, technically, from real counting Major League Baseball games.
Right.
The Japan series going on in Tokyo, Japan. So we're going to get, March 20th, 21st. They're going to go over. They're going to play in Japan.
Oh, yeah, that is worth mentioning.
And the Mariners and the Athletics are going to go over to Japan and play 2 games. And then they're going to come back to spring training for 5 or 6 days. But the 20th and 21st, we're going to get some real Major League Baseball that counts. And then the 28th, like you said, the one day, the earliest opening day for all teams in the history of Major League Baseball.
And that's an excellent point, too. We are 10 days away from real baseball counting for the regular season standings.
Yeah, so if you haven't scheduled your drafts, if you haven't bought your sporting news off the gas station rack, get out there to do it, because you've got 10 days until it counts.
You might be kicking yourself if K-Rys Davis goes out there and hits 3 home runs in Japan or something. You're missing out on some points. So get your drafts done here. You've got about a week and a half before meaningful baseball.
It's crazy.
Speaking of drafts. So a week from today, and we had to get it in before those games, is I think it's the 11th or 12th. No, it's the 10th year I've been in the league, and I want to say it's the 16th annual Electric Company Fantasy Baseball League. The EC Fantasy Baseball League, run by our commish, our buddy Eric Leo.
Who's the reigning champion of that league again?
The same guy is every year.
That would be the Shockers, with a shocking finish on the final day of the season last year.
Why was it shocking? It was shocking.
To jump our fierce competitor Nick Vella. Fred McGriffey was his team name last year.
That was him.
Came down to the last day of the season, and that I have won several times before, but it is always a dogfight till the end. And I can't wait. We made some rule changes, and we are just days away from our fantasy baseball draft. And you will be seeing the footage of that, the broadcast of that, right here from the D studio.
Next Sunday.
Right here at Disruption Network.
Tune in live. You can watch here. You can watch a bunch of people eat some food. We're going to have Baby's Gourmet Sandwich Shop is going to be feeding us some food. And,
we don't have to put that up to a league vote. We knew that we were all on board with it.
It is actually St. Patrick's Day, too, so I'm assuming a few maybe pints will be floating around here, maybe some JMO. If you, there's probably Jameson somewhere in this studio based on what they did last Friday.
There is. I can see a bottle of it right from here, actually.
Well, how about that?
So ready.
Tune in next week if you want to check out SPG, myself, and 8 other gentlemen go at it head-to-head and draft our teams. no rhyme or reason to a lot of people's teams and no rhyme or reason to the season, but SPG is probably going to win again. It's a formality.
Hey, you never
tune
know.
in. See the winning team get picked live.
The rules have changed, and we'll see how that affects my strategy going into the season and other people's strategy. And like I said, even the years where I do win, it is never easy. Whether it was battling with Eric Leo a few times last year, Nick Vella, and Doc, who used to be in our league, very competitive. He was the baseball genius, we always called him, and there was always a whole bunch of really good races with him too. And I'll tell you, you might think I'm lying, but it is never easy. It is never easy to win that league. It's a marathon. Baseball season is a long season with 162 games per team. So, yeah, it takes a lot of patience, and it is a long process to get from opening day to the last game of the season.
That's long.
Yeah, it's a long time. 6 months.
We're going to be here for all 6 months.
And we will. And we were last year, and we've got a whole
Season 2, buddy. Season 2.
Season 2, and we got
I'm excited for this.
Whole bunch of cool ideas and things that we're going to be doing this year. We're going to be bringing some guests into the studio. You'll likely see us out and about the Mohawk Valley, the region here, central New York, doing some cool stuff too. So, yeah, I am excited. I know you're excited, and we have some awesome ideas and some cool stuff for you guys.
Yeah, speaking of which,
Season
speaking of guests, we actually started off our season this year.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first official episode of the Baseline this season, but we actually started off our season by interviewing a Major League Baseball legend.
Easily my favorite part of the off season.
Yeah.
Easily.
We got to sit down, Sean and I, with Dwight Gooden, and it's clear, based on our interview, that Dwight is still a huge fan of the game. He's very up to date on a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about over the next hour or so. The rule changes, and he picks the Mets to win the NL East this year. Go figure. But it's clear that he's in the game still, and it's nice to see Doc. He looked good.
Yeah.
He was nice enough to sit down and give us 15 minutes and was gracious with his time.
And what a nice guy.
A nice
too.
guy.
It was like talking to somebody you've known for years, and him being willing to sit down with us and answer some questions was awesome. And like I said, that was my favorite part of the off season, and it was cool to do. And the video is posted on YouTube. Check it out. The whole 12 minutes professionally edited with good sound in there so that you can clearly hear everything we're talking about and what Doc has to say. Please do check that out. We will be linking to that video again on our Facebook page and in the comments on this Facebook broadcast now. I will
it's
share
already
it out
there.
as well. Excellent. You beat me to it.
I beat you to
Look
it.
at that. You're the Billy Hamilton of posting links on our Facebook page.
What you trying to say? I'm only going to hit 175? I'm better than 175, SPG. I might swipe 40 bags if I could get the piano off my ass, but
The Billy Hamilton of speed, nothing to do with his skills at the plate.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. That comment is now pinned to the top of the post. Please check it out if you guys want to see us with Doc Gooden. It was.
I'm glad you brought that up,
yeah.
and that's a good way to kind of kick off season 2 here, is talking about that Doc Gooden interview a little bit and some of the things that we talked about with him and some of his answers. And you alluded to a bunch of that with his kind of predictions for the NL East. One of the things I thought was interesting is that he didn't seem too high on the Atlanta Braves. And the Braves kind of came, I'm not going to say it came out of nowhere because they have a lot of young talent, elite young talent like Acuna and Albies. Good team there that they're putting together. And they did better last year than most people expected them to do. They kind of took a quick jump forward a little bit earlier than a lot of the talent evaluators had expected, and you would think going into this season you would expect them to take another jump and take it to the next level and maybe become a perennial contending team, but he didn't seem to be too high on the Braves. You mentioned the Nationals, the Phillies before they signed Bryce Harper, and obviously the Mets as teams that he saw as having a better shot at the NL East title than the Atlanta Braves, but we'll see how that plays out. Atlanta added Donaldson, but they have some questions at pitching. It seems like every single one of their starting pitchers is injured right now. they could still go out and grab a Craig Kimbrell or a Keuchel and kind of bolster that pitching staff a little bit, but the lineup is legit. So I don't know if I agree with Doc on that, but I'm not going to say I disagree for sure. It's just one of those things we're going to have to see play out because it's unpredictable when you're looking at teams like Atlanta with all that young talent and the Mets with all the moves they made this offseason. I got to give props to the Mets. I know we rag on them a little bit here on this show, and most of the time with good reason, but major props to the Mets and their new GM for some of the stuff they pulled off this offseason.
BVW, Brody Van Wagenen. I was happy to hear that Doc shared our views about Brody Van Wagenen and the job that he's done. Oh, pardon. And he also has shared our views about Brody being, the agent. He was wearing the agent hat first and then having, kind of an awkward position to step into as now being the GM and trying to sign a guy like, Jacob deGrom or Thor right now. And specifically, we're talking about Jacob deGrom as being his former agent and now being his GM. And Doc shared our views on a lot of that.
Yeah, he did. He almost verbatim said what we had been saying about that when the Mets hired him a few months ago, and that was a lot of skepticism. I was very skeptical of the hire, and the jury is still out. I applaud the Mets for a lot of the moves they made and some of the moves they didn't make. They didn't go out and spend big on a Bryce Harper, even though that would have been kind of a shiny new toy, New York media. Hey, look, the Mets are transformed. We got a superstar now. That the temptation, they resisted any temptation to go out there and make that big splash, which is debatable. If the numbers weren't so high in those contracts, I think the Mets stepping in and grabbing one of them would have been a great strategy. But, you don't want to, just when you are potentially turning things around, you don't want to go out there and lock somebody up for 10 years for that much money.
No.
So they made the right move. They also passed.
Although they did take on Cano's money, but they got a controllable arm at the back end of that bullpen who has been announced. I believe that Diaz is going to be used as a traditional closer, correct? So you got your closer back in the deal that you took all the money with. But they make some pretty good signings like Jed Lowry. Real quiet signing, but hey, it works. The Mets are a very improved team. If one team out there has gone from a non-playoff team into being a playoff team, it's the Mets. And the Phillies are right there, too. We're going to talk about what the Phillies did. Obviously, we'll be talking about Bryce Harper signing the richest contract in the history of the game. Obviously, that's big news in the offseason. But right now, what the Mets have done to shore up the back end of that bullpen, also with the bridge from the starters that they have to the back end of that bullpen, adding bats like Robinson Cano, Jed Lowry, and then I don't know. They did good. I like what BVW has done, and so did Doc Gooden.
Yeah, he did. And a couple of things we asked Doc about that were pretty fun questions, I thought, was one of them was, who did you enjoy striking out the most? And his answer to that was perfect. His nephew, Gary Sheffield. And Gary Sheffield tipped his pitches, or tipped what he was expecting to be pitched to him by how fast.
Isn't that crazy? He was twitching the bat.
By how fast he was twitching the bat over his shoulder. If he was going real fast, he was expecting a fastball. And if he wasn't, he was expecting off-speed stuff. And I don't know if Doc has ever given an interview and offered up that information, but that was incredible to me that he was willing to tell us that story. And he was a good uncle, and he did not give away Gary Sheffield's secrets, but he did take advantage of that when he faced him, and he said that was the most satisfaction he got out of striking out any player, which was cool. And then the question you asked him was, who was your most feared opponent at the plate with the game on the line? The answer was a little surprising. Chili Davis.
Chili Davis. That surprised the hell out of me. And I really wanted to ask him that question because I was, I'm expecting that you're going to get. He played against some just studs, a lot of Hall of Famers out there. Chili Davis. And he said on a bad day, well, watch the interview. See what he said about Chili Davis. But that's a surprise. He said on a bad day that Chili Davis is going to get a couple hits. Or on a bad day, with his bad stuff, Chili Davis is going to hit a couple home runs. On a day with his good stuff, Chili Davis is going to have a couple hits. And that's it. It's fascinating. But thanks, big ups to Doc Gooden.
Yeah.
Also,
Hall of Frames. Thank you for
Sports
having
and
us
Collectibles.
down there.
Tommy Napoli, we appreciate you having us down there. Look forward to doing more with you. Also, another guy comes up to us right afterwards and said that he might have some other interviews for us to do. It was great.
And I got to say, too, what a great event that was in general, too. I mean, the Doc Gooden part of it was obviously the highlight of it for us, but to be having a baseball card and sports collectible show, something you haven't seen happen too much in the last decade, 2 decades. And it was nice to see, and it was very well attended, a whole bunch of vendors and a lot of really cool stuff. And we spent some time walking around and looking at some of the cards and some of the autograph photos and jerseys and all sorts of really cool memorabilia while we were down there. And it was a throwback, it was one of those things that was, made you feel like you were going into the baseball card store again when you were younger. And it was cool. And there was a lot of stuff there that I was tempted to pick up, and it looked like it was very well attended, and I hope they do a lot more of them. So props to Hall of Frames for organizing that event, and of course for having us down there to sit down with Doc Gooden for a few minutes. Highlight of the offseason. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the positive highlight of the offseason. We've already kind of touched a little bit on the free agent climate, which clearly after they talked about the revenue shares that the owners were raking in and not spending the money and kind of just laying in the weeds and not giving these free agents money and really taking ownership of the free agent market this offseason. Or so we thought.
And we did ask Doc Gooden if he thought there was going to be a strike, and I'm not going to give away his answer to that, so you'll have to watch the video to check that out. But that was one of the things I was glad that we asked him, and you might be surprised by his answer.
So I'm not gonna excuse the climate of free agency and the way it has been evolving for the last. We have 10-year veteran former All-Stars out there without deals. Although it does look like one has signed today. Adam Jones looks like he's agreed to a deal with the Diamondbacks, so there's one off the board. But you're talking about the Dallas Keuchels, as you already mentioned, are sitting out there, and that's a travesty. So I am going to still indict the whole offseason free agent climate as, it's bad for the game. But we thought that it was going to be really bad, and we thought that the owners had it all figured out and nothing was going to get signed and no 10-year deals, and then 3 straight. Well,
I got to give you a lot of credit for that, because at the end of our last season, we kind of did I forget the exact,
a little over-under.
Yeah, it was like an over-under or true or false type thing, and I was pretty dead set. I didn't think anybody was going to get 10-year contracts this offseason because of the CBA coming up here in a few years and what that might do to the landscape of baseball and the uncertainty about signing somebody for 10 years. I mean, you rarely see that work out well. And who knows, maybe a 13-year deal for Bryce Harper will work just fine. But I was surprised, especially after we waited so long. I mean, we waited, 3 or 4 months before the big guys signed, those big bats out there, the young guys.
I also said that too. If you remember, I thought that it was going to go past the winter meetings and into the February-March range as well, and it did. After all that hemming and hawing, and after all the leverage that it seemed that the owners had, we had 2 guys sign 10-year contracts. One guy signed 10-year, $300 million contract, and not to be outdone, Bryce Harper turns around and signs for $13 and $330. And, worth mentioning is some of the extensions that have happened. Nolan Arenado, worth noting, became, for a very short period in time, became the highest paid player in the game, signing an 8-year, $260 million extension and staying in Colorado as a member of the Rockies. But not to be outdone, like we said, Manny Machado signed, about a week or 2 later for $10 for $300 with the San Diego Padres. San Diego Padres emerged late.
Yeah, it's crazy if you think about those
late
numbers.
and made the right choice. You don't go out and sign Hosmer to the deal that you signed Hosmer to and not spend money when the free agent studs come available. And they did the right thing, given that they have an exorbitant amount of prospect wealth in that system. And all the players that they think are going to have, even if they have 5 that come up and become all-star caliber players, You're looking at a scenario similar to maybe the Kansas City Royals, where the Kansas City Royals had a window of opportunity for 3 or 4 years. They made the best of it, and they won a title. So San Diego knows that. You spend money to lock down Eric Hosmer, you got to go out and get somebody. The only problem there that I see, obviously, it's glaring. Who's going to throw the ball? But that can be figured out. I don't think that San Diego is in a win-now mode. That's why I like this deal even more, because they're hedging for the future.
They signed him for 10 years. They don't have to expect to go out and win today.
Nope. And a lot of people were looking at, especially a lot of the experts, coming into this free agent offseason. We're looking at Manny Machado being the guy that put a team over. Looking at him going to the Cubs, and now the Cubs are the favorites, or to the Phillies, or the Phillies are the favorites.
You saw the trade deadline with him going to the Dodgers. You look and see and expect a move like that. But yeah, the contract was monstrous, and I applaud San Diego for having the guts to go out and make the move, and to put in perspective how much money that is, and only accounting game time. For the next 10 years, Manny Machado is going to be making almost $63,000 per hour of game time.
That's it. That's good, right?
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
So, like we said, not to be outdone, Bryce Harper signs for 13 years. An interesting note on Bryce Harper's contract is that couple years after Bryce Harper is done getting paid on his 13-year contract, Bobby Bonilla will then be done getting paid by the Mets.
Yeah, that was another hilarious stat with that is, the Mets will be paying Bobby Bonilla longer than the Phillies.
5 years longer, maybe, something like that. Amazing. $26 million a year. Play the game of baseball. Yesterday, he comes out for his first at-bats. He comes out to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song. He's embracing the whole Philly thing, even though he said in his opening interview that he wanted to bring a title back to DC.
Back to DC.
But the Philly fans, everyone that I saw on Twitter, everyone, I didn't see one Philly fan negative about it. Everybody spun it. He meant Delaware County. So
there you go.
He wasn't inaccurate. I want to bring one to DC. But yesterday he comes out to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, trying to woo the home crowd, the faithful.
Yeah, that was his debut too, right?
It was
spring debut.
Spring
he
debut.
Comes out his "Walk to the Plate" song, his Fresh Prince theme.
One thing I want to talk about, since we're on the Bryce Harper kick, we're notably Yankee fans. We try to keep the homerism at home, but we're notably Yankee fans, and I expressed coming into last offseason that I really wanted Bryce Harper. Generational talent, in my opinion, from the left-hand side of the plate. If there's such a thing as over-hustling, Bryce Harper does just that.
Yeah.
He's obviously a face.
It gets him hurt. His balls-to-the-wall style of playing the game gets him hurt.
Is whether or not you like or hate Bryce Harper, all of the hate, the public hate on Bryce Harper, never have I seen a sport. I understand that there's villains, but never have I seen a sport so actively hate on the faces of the game. And it's not just Bryce Harper. They actively hate on Manny Machado. Manny Machado is a 26-year-old, what is he, a 4-time All-Star? 26 years old. Just signed a ridiculous contract with a team out west, so if anything, he's devaluing, if we've seen with Mike Trout, he's devaluing how many people can see him. And they're actively out there hating on Manny Machado. It's okay to not like him, but actively hating on Bryce Harper and Manny Machado is ridiculous.
It is.
It's ridiculous. Hating on him to the point where you're saying that they're not worth the contract. Interesting.
You could not like him as a player.
Last week on Twitter,
absolutely have the hatred for them that I've seen.
The Washington faithful are out of control. They're out of control. They are bitter and salty over this, and deservedly so. But kind of keep it under wraps, because prior to this offseason coming up, last August, September, all these articles about how much Bryce Harper's worth to the Nationals, and you'll hear all of the Nationals fans essentially begging for their star to come back, and they love Bryce Harper. And now he's signed with the Phillies. They don't love Bryce Harper so much.
It reminds me of
now he's a terrible player.
I'll make a cross-sport comparison. It is appropriate, I guess, because it is still hockey season, and there is snow on the ground here in central New York, and probably will be for the next month or so. Hopefully no more than that, but that's probably wishful thinking. But anyway, in hockey, I don't know if you've heard of a player by the name of John Tavares. And he used to play for the New York Islanders, and he was a phenom when he was a kid, and number 1 overall pick in the draft. He played for the Islanders for 8-9 years, and he became a free agent last year. And the New York media and the fans of the Islanders, and the organization even, made all these unique pitches to him, saying, we'll give you free bagels and like all this gimmicky type of stuff. We love you. Stay here, please. And he ended up going and signing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he finally, at this point of the season, 3/4 of the way through the season, came back and played a game as a visiting player in Long Island. And the fans were absolutely brutal. I mean, they were throwing stuff at him. They were throwing jerseys, their old Tavares jerseys at him when he was going down the hallway to go into the locker room after warm-ups, and throwing stuff on the ice at him, and just the hate was amazing. It was like I can't believe what I just saw moment. But the hate was ridiculous. And it reminds me of the scenario with Bryce Harper. The fans in the community, the baseball community in D.C., wooing him to come back, and Bryce, you're the best. You got to stay here. We got to stay at National. Don't leave us. And then he signs.
Don't believe what I just saw. I don't believe what I just saw.
Don't believe what I just saw. But the absolute hate in that John Tavares scenario, again, cross-sport comparison with hockey, but it reminds me a lot of the Bryce Harper scenario. And
it's not good to be hated so much.
And he's in the division now, so he is going to be going back to D.C.
I hope
a lot.
I hope he performs well.
I hope he does too, and I want to see what that scene is like for his first game back, because I can guarantee you it will not be pretty.
Hey, I'm a Bryce Harper fan. I've been on note as saying that I'm a Bryce Harper fan. I don't give him as much hate. Do I worship the guy? He's not Mike Trout to me, okay? I like Mike Trout. I think he plays the game completely right. I don't think that Bryce Harper is labeled correctly in a lot of circles. He's labeled as a crybaby and things of that nature because of his hair, probably something to the effect of something very superficial, because he doesn't come across that way in the way that he plays. Is he a plus defender? No. But does he go out and hustle? Yes.
He's a fiery, passionate guy, so he's going to piss some people off at some point with something he says or does.
Well, I'll tell you right now, he's already proved the fact that he can go out there and hit .330 for a season. And he's proved that he can definitely do it in spurts. Had a down year last year, but still had tremendously good numbers.
You'll never hear people criticize his hustle, like you said.
No, but the funny thing is,
criticisms in there.
The funny thing is, you do see people criticize Bryce Harper's hustle.
But you can't. I mean, it's,
and
don't be that fan.
Exactly. DBTF.
Don't be that fan.
Do not be that fan. We're going to be calling some of you guys out later for Don't Be That Fan. It's a new segment that we're going to have, a Season 2 debut called Don't Be That Fan, where we take some of you lucky guys out there in Twitterverse and we tell you to don't be that fan because you had a terribly awful take. Don't be that fan. Coming up later on the Baseline, Season 2. Dude, I can't believe we're back with Season 2. Already.
Can't believe what I just saw. We're back.
I'd like to thank everybody out there for tuning in. I also like to thank our sponsors. Disruption Network, thanks for being the host with the most that lets the Baseline get out there and out to the masses. So Disruption Network, big up to Todd Z and Chicken. Thank you very much. And also, this podcast is fueled by Utica Club. Utica Club, the first beer served in the United States after Prohibition. Utica Club, a Pilsner lager beer, XX Pure, made at the West End Brewing Company, also known as Saranac. So big up to Saranac, Utica Roasting Company as well. Wake the hell up. You can wake the hell up by visiting, I believe it's wakethehellup.com, and you can check out the fine, fiery, like gasoline, set your day off the right way coffee.
It is so good.
Utica Coffee Roasting.
You can buy it at grocery stores. You can buy it all around town. So
you can buy it probably all over the country.
I highly recommend visiting a Utica coffee roasting location, but if it's not in the cards for a certain day and you want to stop quick and grab a bag of coffee, you can find it all over the place.
And listen, if you just go downtown and you don't know where it is, you can follow your nose right to it, and you'll find it. The best coffee in town right there. That's Utica Roasting Company. So big up to some of our sponsors.
Wake the hell up.
Wake the hell up. Season 2 SPG. We're running down news and notes right now. So free agency, obviously we've seen some big free agent contracts signed, some big extensions. The Yankees notably signed Luis Severino to a very team-friendly, but also a good deal for Severino. Very team-friendly deal at like $10 million per. So that was nice to see him be extended. But aside from free agents and extensions, we had some really big blockbuster-ish type trades go down this offseason.
You saw Paul Goldschmidt get moved. You saw James Paxton get moved.
Yep, James Paxton, the Big Maple, coming on over, notably for Justice Sheffield. Eric Swanson, another guy that is supposed to be looked at as a favorable prospect going back in that deal.
The Mariners, surprise, made a bunch of trades.
Yeah, well,
they are trade machines.
Yes. They are.
They are.
DePoto likes to just have his phone in his hand, I think.
Yeah, he
loves to trade with the Yankees. And
he acquired Carlos Santana, and he traded Carlos Santana this offseason.
That's hard to do. That is hard to do. That is supernatural. The Phillies acquiring JT Realmuto. Can we talk about the offseason that the Phillies have had? The Phillies lineup now includes Gene Segura, another Seattle castaway,
Andrew McCutchen, former MVP.
Andrew McCutchen, JT Realmuto, and Bryce Harper to add with the already good core that was there, including Rhys Hoskins and Odubel Herrera, and, Scott Kingery, other guys, and to go along with Aaron Nola and Jake Arrieta. The Phillies are looking good. But the big trade that they made was shoring up the back of the backstop with probably the best catcher in the game right now, JT Realmuto. And the Marlins weren't shy in what they wanted.
Think about that. So they acquired the best catcher in the game and 2 former MVPs this offseason alone.
Yeah.
That's good, right? It's good, right? Add 2 MVPs and the best catcher of the game to your lineup that was pretty close to being good enough to make in the playoffs last year. I mean, Rhys Hoskins, you mentioned him, is a young stud hitter, and they have just added quality hitters to that lineup to you already kind of hit the nail on the head, to an already strong team. So what they did this offseason was incredible. And that JT Realmuto thing, it seemed like that was dragging on forever. Winter meetings came and everybody thought that Realmuto was going to
John Heyman had JT Realmuto traded every single day.
And then it seemed like that just dragged on. But then when you compare it to how long the Harper Machado thing went on, it just seemed like Realmuto, that whole thing happened really quick. But it really didn't. It dragged on itself. Just a microcosm of this offseason and the way not just free agency, but the way some trades work.
Yeah, also they added David Robertson as well to that Phillies team. Pretty good bullpen there with Nick Pivetta and Pat Neshek.
Sir Anthony
Dominguez. Pretty good. Juan Nicasio, Hector Neris. That's a good team right there. Are they going to be, tune in episode 2 after we're going to take a week break because we have our draft show coming up next week, but episode 2 we're going to get into all our predictions and previews for the season because that'll be opening day right there. So stick around for that. Aside from the trades and the free agents and all of the things that happened with players this offseason, some really stupid stuff happened this offseason. Some of these proposed rule changes are absolutely brutal.
And I hate to keep bringing it back to the Doc interview because that was awesome that we got a chance to talk to a baseball legend. But we asked him about the rule changes, too. And he was not a big fan of the ones that we talked about, pitch clock and moving the mound and some of this other stuff. And it was pretty
Can you believe that they're testing out a 62-foot, 6-inch mound in the Atlantic League?
With robot umpires.
I'm all for the robot umpires. I understand the human element. I'm really not all for it.
I disagree with you.
I don't want to be on the record as saying I'm all for it. I'm all for testing robot umpires. I'm for testing it.
Yeah, I don't have
much. If it's a drastic improvement,
I don't have much confidence in baseball to make the right decision about these rule changes, whether it's the robot umpire thing or not.
The 62-foot mound just baffles me. It's becoming a very good balance of offense and pitching. You're seeing low-scoring games, but the home run totals are through the roof. But the game totals are low. The ERAs are lower. The strikeouts are higher. It's an all-or-nothing type philosophy at the plate. Fix that. The no-shifting thing, we've been on record, both of us saying that we don't agree with it, but at least I can tolerate it because
I would concede that one.
It makes sense.
I would concede that one completely.
It's going to make the game.
We can not muck up other things.
Competition better, but 62 feet just doesn't make any sense.
No.
That makes 14, 15, 16-run games. And if what you're really looking for is pace of play, scoring 14 runs and going through 4 pitchers, 5 pitchers, 6 pitchers out of the bullpen a game, that's going to extend pace of play.
You're going to see more injuries, too.
Those 76 pitch Greg Maddox complete games are the ones where you're in and out in an hour and a half. So I don't understand some of these proposed rule changes because they're the complete antithesis of what they're trying to achieve in terms of pace of play.
Baseball can be so contradicting with what their goals are with these rule changes. I mean, you see them talk about pitch clocks, and you see them talk about all this other stuff to try to help fix pace of play. Pitchers can only have a minimum amount of batters they can face and things like that. And then the instant replay one is the one that I bring up all the time. So, and Doc Gooden was in agreement with me, and I'll take that as reinforcement that this is the correct opinion.
The Doc today.
This is the correct opinion of it. With all due respect to people that think opposite, but you're wrong. Instant replay takes up so much useless time in baseball, and that's not to say there isn't a place for it. You can craft it properly and do the reviews right, but you got these umpires out on the field with their radio packs or whatever standing around while they are waiting to hear from whoever is reviewing it. How is this not a quicker process? Fix that. It takes minutes off the game. Anytime you have instant replay review involved, it just drags it out, and it goes against what they are trying to do with these rule changes. So there's so much contradiction in some of the stuff they're trying to do, and I don't get it. And the human impact of the game, to me, I mean, it needs to stay. I'm fine with certain replay rules. I'm fine with certain things. I'm even fine with the Fox broadcast that shows you where those pitches are, so you know the umpire's right or wrong. Sure, that might.
I'm all for all that stuff too.
That might put more pressure on those umps because,
like the Quest Tech was.
Everybody at home can see when they're wrong, and hop on social media and go freaking nuts over how they suck.
The problem is when they are blatantly wrong. It's just the suck it up. It's part of the game, and some of that I'd like to, Angel Hernandez. When somebody like Angel Hernandez is as blatantly bad as he is, he should be fined or suspended.
Exactly it.
That's like
how you fix
one of the players.
That's how you fix
fined or suspend him. Suspend him.
Is you make these umpires accountable.
I'm sorry, you're sitting out 2 games.
Make these umpires accountable.
And whatever your salary is for those 2 games. Yes.
And that way, the best ones, the cream rises to the top, and you kind of... You have incentive for these guys to go out there and get better at what they're doing. And that's the answer. It's not robot umpires.
I get the whole Angel Hernandez thing, and I understand all of it. Okay? And why MLB is fearful. So keep him around on a 162-game schedule. Perfect. But Angel Hernandez getting a playoff game or a World Series game is laughable. It's downright treasonous to the game because you know it's going to be bad, and you know that guy makes it all about himself.
And you have him suing the game.
Am I
suing the league? You have him suing the league over complaints of why he may or may not be discriminating discriminated against.
Well, I know why he's discriminated against. He's terrible.
It's because of his quality of work is why.
It's blatant.
It has nothing to do with anything else, in my opinion, and that's the part that is in his control, is how good he is at his job. I don't care if you have a bad eye. You can get better. I don't know how umpires do it. I am not an umpire, but incentive systems, do something to improve, issues where you see Angel Hernandez out there just blowing calls left and right, because we saw it in the playoffs. We saw it all season long. And what more proof can you need that we need to do something better here? But the answer to me is not robot umpires. I'm interested in that in the minor leagues, though, especially, if it saves money for some of these really low minor leagues. And if you have some kind of system installed in there, I don't know how much these robot umpires cost, but it's kind of a cool idea. You could play a game potentially without an umpire if you had the system in there at a low-level league, but not Major League Baseball.
No, you got to have the home plate umpire in there. But like I say, that's why I tried to clarify. Not necessarily that I'm on board with that.
Yeah,
but I'm on board with
putting. I get it.
I'm on board with putting pressure on the real umps. Some of it is blatantly bad. It's not fair to the game, the integrity of the game, and like you say, the replay process. Trim it up, guys. Trim it up, especially on the ones that he's clearly safe, or he's clearly out, or it's clearly a home run. Trim it up, guys.
You're out!
Who's out?
Angel Hernandez. We'll throw him out again. He was one of our
You're out of here!
Out of the baseline of the year award winners.
That's right. He did. He won the award last year.
And here we are kicking off our season, complaining about him again because he deserves it.
He does. Moving on. So the rule changes. Listen, ridiculous. Pitch clock, ridiculous. 62-foot, 6-inch mound, ridiculous. All right, banning the shifts to my opinion is ridiculous, but it would be one that I could concede if you're not going to lengthen the mound.
If you're going to make some compromises, that's the one that you say.
You want to know what rule change I'd like to see? I'd like to see them restrict Rob Manfred from making these rule changes. Leave the game alone. The game is in a perfect spot. It's at a good balance. The three true outcome player is a thing of the present. I'd like to see that change, but that's an organizational philosophy. That's a development philosophy. That's not Major League Baseball's responsibility to mold the way that gameplay happens. So just let it be. The game is perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that was some of the more annoying stuff going on in the offseason. But changing gears to something positive. We got to talk about something positive after getting a little fired up about Angel Hernandez again.
Yeah.
And
right.
I'm having flashbacks to season 1 now all of a sudden. And I'm sure we'll be talking about him as the season goes on because I don't expect he will get any better at his job. But let's talk about something positive. Hall of Fame class 2019. I like it.
I like it.
The first unanimous Hall of Fame member.
Right.
I mean, Mariano Rivera, 100% of the vote. We knew he was getting in. That was a no-brainer. 100% was, I didn't think it was going to happen. And we'd even seen people in the media, a guy that covers the Red Sox, say, I am not voting for Mariano Rivera. And just a ridiculous statement. And he ended up voting for him, apparently.
No, he did not submit a ballot.
Okay,
that was the thing.
Fair enough.
He did not submit his ballot.
So
he
that was
said,
his
I
protest.
can't bring myself to vote for Mariano Rivera, so I'm just not going to submit a ballot.
Okay, fair compromise.
And for that, he was out of the baseline. But you know what?
You're out of here!
You're still out of here, and Mariano Rivera got in unanimously. So
can you imagine the backlash he would have gotten?
How do you not vote for maybe one of the best pitchers of all time, but certainly the best at his position of all time? Comparing him to Adam Vinatieri at the end of a game, what a horrible, horrible, horrible take.
Yeah, there's a cross-sport comparison that doesn't work. I know we did the John Tavares one earlier, but yeah, that one does not work.
He's in. Mariano Rivera is in. Roy Halladay is in. Nice to see Roy getting in. Too bad that he's not going to be in Cooperstown this July to see it, but had an unbelievable stretch with between the Blue Jays and the Phillies, but hurling a no-hitter in the playoffs, a couple Cy Youngs. Roy Halladay dominated baseball for a nice stretch of time. Edgar Martinez, there's one that I know that struck a chord with you.
Yes, absolutely.
You've been dying
we have been waiting for that one. I know
to get in.
The same with you, I
Yep.
know, based on our discussions last year and talking about, right before the end of the baseline season 1, about our Hall of Fame hopes and expectations and what we really wanted to see. And Edgar Martinez was one that I just really wanted to see get in. And I won't get into all the reasons behind that because that has been hashed over and over again, and he is in. So the argument doesn't need to be made anymore. Edgar Martinez is a Hall of Famer.
He is a Hall of Famer, and that's nice to see. And what a strong class that this is with just those guys. But then you got the Moose coming in, Mike Messina too. And then one guy
just sneaking in 76.7% of the vote.
And then nobody really even close after that. I think it was Kurt Schilling and Roger
About
Clemens,
60%
Barry Bonds,
for Schilling and Clemens.
all hanging around
Bonds.
60%. Larry Walker might have been on the list.
And the most shocking low percentage to me was Fred McGriff. I mean, sure, leave him off here if you have to with Martinez getting in, but
Last year
on the ballot, and he only gets less than 40%.
493 home runs in the steroid era, where it was clear that he wasn't doing steroids. The knock against Fred McGriff is that he didn't play on one team. He didn't identify with one hat. Well, I'm sorry. He hit fourth on every team that he was on.
Right, and that wasn't
every team that he was on.
And that mostly was not by his own doing. Those were trades. It wasn't like he was going out and signing free agent deals all over the place. He was getting traded because he was a heck of a player, and he played on some teams that had bad seasons here and there, and he became a valuable trade deadline asset. I mean, the year that he was acquired by the Braves from the Padres, he was the big bat of that trade deadline. He was the one that can put somebody over the top potentially. And that happened all throughout his career. He was with Tampa Bay for a while. He started with the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe.
Yes.
And he just got moved all over the place with trades. So it's not like the guy went out there and just signed a bunch of free agent deals. That was out of his control. And it's a shame if that factored into the decision to leave him off of the Hall of Fame ballot going forward. But it is what it is. Maybe we'll see him get in a la Harold Baines, Veterans Committee at some point.
Speaking of Harold Baines, we are now going to have a Hall of Fame with Harold Baines and Alan Trammell, but no Dale Murphy and no Donnie Baseball. It's crazy to me that if we were to time warp back to 1989, and you were to tell somebody, who do you think is going to be a Hall of Famer right now? Dale Murphy, Donnie Baseball. Those would have been the names at the top of the list. But instead it's Alan Trammell and it's Harold Baines. Some people think it was a little bit of collusion for Harold Baines to get in, given that Jerry Reinsdorf and Tony La Russa were both on that Veterans Committee. Well, not Veterans Committee, but
to be clear, we said
modern era.
We
committee.
said this last year. This is no disrespect to Harold Baines. He had a great career.
Not at all.
This is in relation to some of the guys that aren't in the Hall of Fame, is what it is. And no disrespect to Harold Baines. Very good player. But is this the Hall of Fame, or is this the Hall of very good players? And yeah, you see some of these names that are still not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I look at Fred McGriff. He's got a better body of work than Harold Baines, and he's on the outside looking in. So we'll see what happens down the road with Veterans Committee votes and things like that could still potentially get him in. But ouch, less than 40% vote. Ouch.
Yeah. What's a guy got to do? What's Jeff Kent got to do?
Yeah. He only got 45% of the vote.
What does Jeff Kent have to do to get some votes? Maybe one of the best second basemen.
He only got 18%.
18%
of the vote.
Crazy. So these are the things that I have problems with the Hall of Fame, is that some of these guys out there, I mean, maybe the 10 limit has to go away.
Maybe it does, yeah. I mean, that's another thing that could potentially be revamped. And, I don't have a major problem. Well, I have some problems. I guess not any kind of major problems with the way the voting process works for the 10-year ballot, but it could certainly be done better. Vet some of these voters a little bit better. Who is given a Hall of Fame vote should be reviewed. Things like that for sure. You have people making Hall of Fame votes that admittedly barely cover baseball. So there's some revamping that can be done for sure. But I do think they got it right this year, though. I think Mariano being unanimous is great, and Edgar Martinez and Halladay and Mussina, great class, and it's nice to see. Now on Mo and Mussina, I got to mention 2003. So the Aaron Boone game. What an incredible series, incredible game that was, and going back and watching that game again, the MLB Network did a special on the Aaron Boone game about a week or so ago, and I watched it. And, obviously, you watch that game when it's going on, emotions are flying. I mean, that series was one of the best I have ever seen, even though it was an ALCS, not in a World Series. And the fact that Boston had not yet broken the curse, the fact that it went into extra innings and we had some issues. The Yankees had some issues early in the game and came back. A lot of people forget about how Mike Mussina came in and basically settled everything down for the Yankees. Didn't start the game, but the middle part of that game was huge that he kept the Red Sox mostly off the board and allowed the Yankees to chip away at that lead. And then you have Mariano come in and pitches 3 innings later in that game to keep stretching things out while the Yankees bats got their stuff together. And here comes Aaron Boone off the bench and hits a home run. So, 2 Hall of Famers involved in one of the best baseball series you will ever see. So I thought that tie into the Hall of Fame class of this year was a good one.
I was happy to see Moose get in. A lot of hate on Moose too, since he got announced as coming in. I'm sorry, we've been on record before. Moose is a Hall of Famer.
The things he did in the steroid era, I mean, come on. He was an incredible pitcher, especially for the era he pitched in, and he deserves to be there. He belongs there,
for sure.
Speaking of the Hall of Fame, we were talking about doing a little special contest.
We should do a special contest, shouldn't we?
Should we unveil that now?
Yeah. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, SPG and myself thought that we should maybe do a little giveaway for our listeners. So what we're going to do is this week on our Baseline page, going up, and we'll announce the winner on our draft show. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there we go.
This week coming up on our draft show, and all this week you can enter on the Baseline page to win a pair of tickets to the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame, National Baseball Hall of Fame, lovely Cooperstown,
museum.
New York, and we're going to give 2 tickets away to that coming up here next week. So I can't wait. Stick around.
And it's
for that.
easy to enter too. So all you have to do is you have to like the Baseline Facebook page. You have to like Disruption Network's Facebook page. That's 2 mouse clicks. And then you have to share Disruption Network's page. That is 3 mouse clicks for a chance to win admission to the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, New York.
Mecca.
And who knows who you'll run into there if you do just decide to go on.
Yeah, the players go all season long. The players go and go and go.
Especially the new class. I mean, Mariano Rivera was just there a few weeks ago. It's not unusual to run into a Hall of Famer or a baseball legend or some name in baseball just visiting the Hall of Fame on some random day. So we'll be posting the details about that contest on Facebook, and stay tuned for that. And we're excited. We're excited to give somebody a chance to go visit the Mecca.
That's right.
What's the haps on the haps?
You know what time it is, right?
The Haps on the Haps.
It's time for the Haps on the Haps. Season 2 of the Haps on the Haps. What happened to the Haps this offseason? What's the Haps on the Haps in March of 2019? Well, I'll tell you one of them. J-Hap signed a pretty lucrative deal with the third year included to come back with the New York Yankees. And he's slotted as being in that rotation and anchoring down that rotation now with the injury to Luis Severino, or potential injury to Luis Severino. J-Hap is a very important piece now. Not that he wasn't already, but very important to the Yankees rotation. And getting that, like I mentioned, the third year was important to him too. So we're going to see J-Hap.
And that 3-year contract was pretty rare for starting pitching this offseason. You really only saw,
especially for somebody that's his age,
a handful of them get more than 2 years, and J-Hap was one of them with the 3 years. The Nationals signed Patrick Corbin, 4-year deal, I believe, but I don't know if there was any other ones. Unless you want to count Esteban Loaiza getting a 3-year deal to go to prison for his drug trafficking charges.
Well, did he only get 3 years? That's it?
He only got 3 years for having 44 pounds of cocaine. But
that's it? That's the going rate?
He is being deported following his release from prison. So that was one of the longest deals signed by a former pitcher, I guess. I guess he didn't sign that deal. The judge did. But anyway, J-Hap, back on the subject of the Haps. 3-year contract for him, and that goes to show you how important the Yankees saw bringing him back into the fold was, to go 3 years for a guy that, is in his late 30s now. He is struggling in spring training. I want to say he's got maybe a 7 ERA, but for a veteran, that's not out of the ordinary for them to be experimenting with certain things in spring training or just getting the arm really ramped up. So nothing to really worry about, at least not yet, but he is off to a bit of a rough start. But great signing, and J-Hap, of course, a very happy Hap getting that 3-year contract from the New York Yankees in the offseason.
What about Ian Happ?
What about Ian? What's he up to?
Well, Ian Happ, he might not be the happiest Hap out of the Haps because right now he's competing for a job over there with the Chicago Cubs. But I will say that Ian Happ did have a pretty good offseason, a happy offseason. He collaborated, what I think, is on a book called Through My Eyes series from the dugout. So Ian Happ is an author this offseason. So he might not be the happiest, fiscally speaking, happiest Hap.
He's a pretty happy Hap, though.
But he is a pretty happy Hap.
He's got a good shot at getting some playing time. He's in the running for the second base job for Chicago, and even if he doesn't get a full-time starting job, he can move all over the field, and he'll get his at-bats in. And if he's hot, they will make sure that he is in the lineup every day somewhere.
And that is called Wrigley Through My Eyes. You can catch that at WrigleyThroughMyEyes.com. It's a web series, so not necessarily a book, but a web series called Through My Eyes, and you can check that out. That's Ian Happ putting a little artistic spin.
You can check it out at WrigleyThroughMyEyes.com. Actually,
so Ian Happ still a pretty happy Hap. J-Hap is the happy Hap this week, and that just closes out. That is the... What's the Haps on the Haps? That's the Haps on the Haps.
That's the Haps.
The Haps on the Haps was brought to you by EJA Moving Company. That's EJA Moving Company. Oh, now it went away. I was about to read you an ad about EJA Moving Company.
A professional moving service. They do residential, commercial, long-distance moving as well. So if you're moving out of town, they will help you with that too. Specialty moves, packing services, storage. They are your moving specialist here in the Utica, New York area and beyond regionally. So you can get in touch with EJA Moving at 315-335-0516. Check out their website at ejamoving.com. They are your moving specialist, and they'll help you out with whatever you need. I know they even do college dorm pack-ups and move-ins and things like that. So a lot of very cool services offered there. They are not your traditional moving company. And
check out Eddie over at EJA Moving Company.
Give him a call. Again, that was 315-335-0516, EJA Moving.
So that's the Haps on the Haps. And moving on, we got to talk about our boy. And if you're familiar with the show, you know that our boy is Johnny Field. Johnny Field,
2 strikeouts, Johnny.
One of those guys that is out there competing with the Haps on the Haps, Ian Happ, for a job in that Chicago Cub outfield. Johnny bounced around a little bit last year.
He's another guy that's from Las Vegas. He just had a birthday. He just turned 27, and we'll talk about his birthday here in a second. But you got to figure he played with Bryce Harper back in the day. He's from Vegas.
Chris Bryant.
Yeah, Bryant. He's from Vegas, and he just turned 27 years old. So
he's a Team USA guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was with the Durham Bulls a little bit last year. He was up and down with the Rays, and then traded. He was given his release, and he got picked up by the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, the Indians actually picked him up for like a week.
Yeah, that's right.
In between the Rays and the Twins. And then following the season, he was DFA'd, and he signed a contract with the Chicago Cubs organization. So, yeah, we kind of follow the saga of Johnny Field. And we give our
2 strikeouts,
our
Johnny.
field report. So, yeah, his birthday was February 20th, so it was just less than a month ago. And you saw some some interesting, what was it, Instagram posts?
It was on Instagram. Johnny, I follow you on Instagram. You're one of my favorite follows, I have to say. I wished you some luck. The crystal ball prediction, this post grants you the opportunity to make any player have the best year of his career. I pick you, Johnny Field. The one thing that I thought was
He gave you some love for that, too.
He did. He gave me some love for that. It's my boy, Johnny Field. But the funny thing is, on his birthday, we knew it was his birthday because in his story, he shared all of the wonderful posts that other people were making for him. It was a very interesting thing, to say the least, to see somebody trumpet their birthday with such might. But Johnny, we would expect nothing less of you. There's no fungus on your shower shoes right now. You're in Major League camp. We want you to stay up there. We want you to be in the Windy City. But if not, you're going to end up back in the bus leagues. You're going to end up in New York State, buddy. You're going to be in Triple A. You're going to be in the International League. You will be close to us. You'll be near us. We'll be able to come and see you at the now Syracuse Mets games.
Right.
Hopefully you're not coaching first base.
Yeah, last time I saw him there, he was.
So, Johnny Field.
0.0.
That's a new season, buddy. It's a clean slate.
Clean slate.
Clean slate.
0.0.
Clean slate, Johnny Field. So right now, that's the first field report of the year.
Yeah, we'll be checking in on Johnny Field, of course, throughout the season.
Throughout the season. But that's the field report.
And you never know. Maybe we will get a chance to go see him play in person again. Got the pleasure of doing that a couple times last year. And, yeah, maybe we'll see him again in Syracuse or somewhere.
Johnny Field wears an arm bracelet that says, "Let Malix take this one." Right? Isn't that what it says? Let Malix get this one?
It's motivation right there.
It is. So that's the field report.
In quotes, too. It's in quotes. Let Malix get this one, Johnny.
I can't wait to, my ultimate goal with the field report, as I know it's yours. I want, Johnny, I need you to call into the show. We got the phone line up. You can give a call in, and we'd love to talk to you. We'd even like to Skype in with you throughout the season. No matter where you end up, bus leagues or in the show, we want to know. Johnny Field, the field report. Hey, buddy, you can dictate how good this field report is with how good you play and how active you want to get with us. You want to get active with us? It'll be a good field report. We can make this a thing. You can have your forum every week. You can get up and you can tell everybody in the world how you feel. The field report. We're going to expand on this. Moving on, we're going to get into, just a little bit, not too much fantasy news going on right now because, other than like the Severino injury,
right?
Things of that nature, look out for the injury bug catching your team, obviously.
Clayton Kershaw's another one.
Especially with such an early start time this year. People are drafting super early and there's still a lot of spring training time in, so you can get burnt by some injuries. But each week on our show, as you know, we have our
3 up, 3 down.
3 up, 3 down. It's our fantasy segment with our resident fantasy expert.
So stay tuned for that all season long once we get rolling into the season a little bit and have a little bit more fantasy news to talk about. We could do and we're going to do a whole fantasy baseball show next week with a bunch of other hilarity and antics mixed into it at our 2019 draft. Catch that next Sunday. What time are we kicking it off? I didn't even see. What
2
time?
p.m.
What time is first pitch of our fantasy draft?
3, probably right around
2
there.
o'clock.
I think we'll meet up around 2. We'll go over some rules, maybe. Who knows? That's all up in the air. But we're going to get into some fantasy expert analysis from SPG. So each week, SPG is going to give you 3 up and 3 down. He's going to give you 3 players to go towards and 3 players to stay away from. So next week, maybe, before the draft, you can give a little, we'll go in the back room so nobody else hears the strategy before. But you can give us a 3 up, 3 down of maybe what you're looking at trying to stay in your draft with. So
you'll see. Well,
stay tuned.
You never know what you'll see at the fantasy drafts here for the EC League.
You got to stay tuned across the season for Sean's expert analysis. And let me tell you something. He wins leagues, ladies and gentlemen. He wins the league.
Just a few.
Just a few. That's good, right? So we are cruising through this first episode just because don't want to lag too far behind. There was a lot of news and notes and not a whole lot of substance. We don't have standings yet. Nothing going on. Not going to give you the Grapefruit and Cactus League standings because who cares? Spring training. The only thing I care about in spring training is the injury bug and hoping it stays away from some teams that I like. But other than that, we're good to go. We're going to move into my favorite segment of the show. What about you? Your favorite segment of the show?
Oh, yeah. If I was to pick one, and it varies from show to show. We can have really good field reports that might be the highlight of the show, but I'd say consistently the 7th inning stretch here is the best part of the show, where we rank whatever it is we want to rank that week or have a discussion on some sort of current event that we find to be a good point of talking and giving our opinions on. Whatever that focal point of the show is usually the 7th inning stretch. So we're going to kind of focus on
It's time for
the off season is the topic of the week.
Yeah, we're going to run down the top 7 most improved or best off season.
Yeah.
Who had the best off season? Chime in if you're out there
Off
listening.
season winners.
The off season winners.
The winners of the off season.
We're going to rank 7 of them. I got my list ready. How about you? We're just going to rank 7 here this week because that's what we do. Sometimes we hybridize it. So we're just going to give you our top 7 as a group. But some weeks, it'll be such diversity that we got to do.
Oh yeah.
like
Sometimes we expand
like
it.
the number 1 movie. There was too many, so we both had to have our own lists. But this week we're gonna let you know who we think are the top 7 most improved teams in our 7th inning stretch.
It's time for the 7th inning stretch.
It's time for the 7th inning stretch.
Yeah, why don't you kick it off? You said you got your list up, and what do you have coming in at your number 7 winner of the 2018-19 offseason?
Well, as you mentioned before, they did add Josh Donaldson. The Atlanta Braves were a playoff team last year, and anytime you can add a former MVP at the way that they added him, I'm gonna rank the Atlanta Braves. Needed to do some work, and as you had once said a little while ago, the Atlanta Braves seems like all of their pitchers are hurt. But adding Donaldson and some other key pieces in this offseason puts them to 7th for me. I've seen a lot of predictions out there where it has the Braves finishing 4th or 5th in that division. And I don't know if I see them finishing last, going from a playoff team to finishing last in that division. There are a few teams in that division that have had better off seasons than the Braves. But for right now, given what the Braves did early in the off season, I might add, they did bring Brian McCann back. They have a nice little platoon going there with Brian McCann now. But I'm going to get I got the Atlanta Braves there at number 7. But I'm sure not going to be the last NL East team that we're going to discuss. We got a number 6, SPG.
And, to touch on what you said about the Braves, too, I couldn't agree more. And really, when I was looking at the list of teams, there's really not a lot of teams that jump out to you as having a great offseason. I mean, sure, we've talked about a few of those at the beginning of the show, and they'll be on our list here, but the Braves offseason wasn't perfect by any means, but adding Donaldson and, like you said, McCann, if Donaldson is 75% of his MVP caliber self, what in addition to a young lineup thrown in at what was kind of a revolving door at third base a little bit last year. I mean, Camargo's a good young player, but he's not the star power potential all-star type that Josh Donaldson has been in seasons where he's not hurt, which happens too often lately in the last couple of years. But if that signing works out, it is one of my favorite signings of the offseason. So props to the Braves for that.
Also worthy of note, they brought back Nick Markakis, who had a career year there last year in Atlanta. Really a solid move to come back. I like what the Braves did this offseason. Didn't make a big splash, didn't go out and get a Machado, didn't get a Kimbrel reunion yet. But I like so far what the Braves have done, and I think that they're in a better position than finishing 4th or 5th in that division. But we're going to get to that in a couple weeks when we make our predictions. But number 7, I got the Braves. Number 6.
Coming in number 6, and I'm going to try to take an anti-homer approach and not put them higher on the list, because you can certainly make an argument that the Yankees had a great offseason.
I think that you are undervaluing them. I think that's fine.
Yep, and I figured you would, but
that's fine.
To kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, you've got some people screaming from the rooftops, I guess you could say, that the Yankees missed out on some huge opportunities of going out and signing a Machado or a Bryce Harper, and I would love to see either one of those guys in the Yankees lineup, but not for a 10-plus year contract for how much money it would take. So anyways, we'll take that into account of it. They didn't go out and get one of the big fish, and that could be a positive or negative depending on how you see that. For me, it's a positive, but the Yankees added some nice pieces. They got James Paxton. They got Tulowitzki, who knows what you're going to end up with there.
For me,
for dirt cheap, you got him for the minimum.
That could be, like you said, the Donaldson move.
Right. It's the exact same idea.
It's the same idea with Troy Tulowitzki, only that's a $500,000 deal.
Right.
That's really wise money that was spent there for $500,000. I like what the Yankees have done.
And picking up DJ LeMahieu, too.
The most quiet...
Adding him to that
That's the most quiet move that the Yankees made was the DJ LeMahieu out of nowhere. Everybody's wondering, are they going to sign Manny Machado? Are they going to sign Manny Machado? All day long, that's all you hear are the Yankees in on Manny Machado. And they scoop it and they sign DJ LeMahieu and they say, shh.
Right.
I don't want to talk about Manny Machado anymore. We're moving on. Let's make no bones about it. If the Yankees wanted Manny Machado in that lineup, Manny Machado would be in Yankees camp right now. The Yankees did not like what they saw, whether it be the hustle comments or the contract demands.
Yep.
The Yankees didn't like the way it jived with this team, and they didn't bite. And I appreciate that about the Yankees offseason. The Adam Ottavino deal is going to be maybe the best deal that they made all offseason, because that bullpen is so formidable now. Not that it wasn't prior, but the Adam Ottavino deal, my favorite Yankees move of the offseason. So I think having them at number 6 is undervaluing them.
Yeah, and I can totally understand that argument. But like I said, to play the anti-homer card a little bit and to think of things outside the box.
I get it.
Just a bit. And that still makes them a winner of the offseason, because we are ranking the winners of the offseason. But I'll put the Yankees in at number 6, and that is not a bad thing. That's not to say that I say they had a bad offseason. That's pretty darn good. Adding Paxton and Ottavino and LeMahieu, and who knows what Tulowitzki can provide. And he got off to an on-fire start. He was torrid first couple games, hitting home runs left and right, but he has cooled down considerably. But it is spring training, and that's what it's for, as long as he doesn't get hurt.
So moving on to number 5, just ahead of the undervalued Yankees, I think. I'm going to slot the St. Louis Cardinals. Anytime that you can go out and add a talent like Paul Goldschmidt to a team, that's going to make you really good.
And what a trade. And that's another one I should have mentioned while we were talking about the Yankees, too, is early on in the offseason, because that trade happened fairly quickly. I want to say it was December, maybe. That was another name you heard mentioned a lot associated with the Yankees. Are the Yankees going to trade for Goldie, which would have been an excellent fit, probably even more so than Harper or even Machado. But you obviously have to give up something to get him other than money at that point because you're making a trade. But what a great pickup for St. Louis. I agree 100%.
Also adding Andrew Miller there. Like to see him return to form, but that's a good get with a guy like Hicks in that bullpen. That's a good get to add to that pen, a lefty option, potentially one of the best lefties in the game. Go right along with Chasen Shreve. But number 5, I got the St. Louis Cardinals. I like Goldie going to that, and I think that makes an immediate contender in the NL Central. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals. Who you got at number 4?
Number 4, let's see. Who do we got at number 4? I thought the Tampa Bay Rays made some interesting moves. Again, nothing earth-shattering.
But they are not in a position to be an earth-shattering team.
Exactly. So they did exactly what they needed to do. And I got to pull up their transaction list because I just lost that note. But there's potentially a sneaky good team coming into next year. And you have the Cy Young winner with Snell there. You have
now they've added Charlie Morton.
Charlie Morton, that was the move I had in mind. Is you're starting to solidify that rotation a little bit. You have a former World Series winning starting pitcher, who has been there and done that and knows what it takes, and he's a veteran presence too. So Charlie Morton was kind of one of the he was kind of an unsung move, I thought, pretty early in the offseason, especially when you compare it to how things have dragged out for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, also adding Zunino this offseason.
Yeah, they made a trade with Cleveland, too. They traded Jake Bauers to Cleveland.
Yeah, so I want to be clear that, the ranking of them this high is also inclusive of what they did near the end of last year, adding Tom Pham.
Of course, yep.
And Austin
and
Meadows.
That might be cheating a little bit to include that, but
no, but it's a different team than it's a different team than they put out there for the entire year last year, and now one of the better outfields, in the division, maybe in the league, with Pham, Kiermaier, and Austin Meadows, potentially. There's a lot of potential. It's a lot of hyperbole to label that as one of the best, I guess, right now, but potentially one of the best. Defensively, lockdown out there. But you're adding that to, Adames and Duffy and the opener, the bullpen that's there, and the out-of-the-box mentality that they're going to employ. I like it. I like how high you got them ranked.
And you did hit the nail on the head again, that it might be cheating a little bit to go back to some of the moves from last year. But, adding Glasnow and the moves to get Pham and some of the other things they did last year really helped. And having an open-minded strategy about deploying the opener and being really the first team to do it, at least on the regular. I like the way Kevin Cash kind of thinks outside the box. I'll put it that way. And he's another guy, and we've mentioned certain.
He should have won the Manager of the Year job, last year, or Manager of the Year award last year. It went to a deserving person who got, the lowest payroll. Bob Melvin got the lowest payroll in the history of the game, or lowest payroll in the game, first time in the history to get it to the playoffs. But 90 wins with that team, and only improved themselves by adding Morton. Got to like where they're at. My number 3 most improved team. Don't know if they quite made themselves a playoff team, but you got to appreciate the lineup in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Cincinnati goes out and they take the salary dump from Los Angeles. If it wasn't for 2 teams in the NL East, I would have Cincinnati at number 1. And for the longest time, I had them at number 1 because they were having an awesome offseason. And they created this lineup. This lineup now features Eugenio Suarez and Winker and Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig and Schebler and Scooter Gennett and Joey Votto and Tucker Barnhart. They went out and they got Sonny Gray. Can Sonny Gray turn it around and be the ace-style pitcher that he was in Oakland? Maybe not so conducive. Sonny Gray coming out and calling the Yankees out according to their philosophy, their pitching philosophy, their curveball dominant pitching philosophy. So maybe breaking away from that, he can get back to throwing fastballs. Every fastball that he threw in the Bronx was a gopher ball, I think. But maybe it's going to be different. Alex Wood comes back over in that deal with Los Angeles. You add that Sonny Gray and Wood to Castillo and Tanner Roark.
Yeah, Roark was another one they added.
D. Scalfani. All right. And now Eugenio Suarez and Peraza and, Nick Senzel, a guy that is really high in the organizational depth chart, is going to be coming up. I'm telling you.
And you got to figure another an improved year from Joey Votto. He is too good of a player to have had the year he had last year. And even last year, I mean, by your normal player standards, was a very good year. But you're talking about Joey Votto, one of the best hitters of his generation. And I think you'll see a bounce-back season from Votto as well.
Like I said, I don't know if they've made themselves into a playoff contender, maybe a wild card contender with that with that what they have in front of them in terms of that lineup. Maybe they contend in the Central, but a really improved squad there in Cincinnati. So I got Cincinnati Reds at number 3.
So number 2 has to be the San Diego Padres, acquiring Machado for that huge contract, solidifying that lineup. You're going to have another offseason, another season of all that young talent developing. I know you're a huge fan of the how deep that organization is in prospects and blooming young players, and we talked a little bit about this at the lead of the show. But this might not be the year you see San Diego in the playoffs, but they sure as heck have a lot of assets right now to use either as trade pieces or to continue developing. And if they go out there and they end up getting like a Madison Bumgarner, whether that's during the season here or whether that's after the season, I don't know. He's a free agent after the season, I believe. And that's just an example. If they go out there and add some arms to this already just ridiculously high upside organization as far as batters go, then the future will be bright for San Diego. It's pretty apparent, and putting Manny Machado right in the middle of that lineup is a huge... no other moves at all this offseason, but bringing Manny Machado in for San Diego, that's a win. That is a winning move.
Like we said earlier, it made a total amount of sense. If you're going to go and sign Hosmer to that deal, you got to bring in Manny Machado. And I'm glad that they were able to cast the net out. And, let's be truthful here. Had either one of them signed at the winter meetings, $300 million for 10 years probably doesn't get it done. That's probably the starting base offer. But because it dragged on to
the minimum, even.
The minimum. That's where, we're going to get the bidding started at this, where the auctioneer says, hey, we're going to start with this reserve here. This is where we're starting.
And then nobody raises their hands, and then finally the Padres just say, hey, okay, we'll take them.
Brilliantly played by the Padres. That's the starting offer in December. They milk it out. They enter the race late. They milk it out, and then what would have been the starting offer ends up looking like a sweetheart deal for Manny Machado. So I agree with you. Having San Diego up that high, let's see if they can put it together. They're not in a win-now mode yet, but a tremendously improved team adding such a young stud at 26 years old for 10 years, the San Diego Padres. Which brings us to number 1 in our most improved off-season teams or our best off-seasons. And for me and you, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that we have a tie.
Yeah, I'd say that's a safe assumption, and it is, of course, worth mentioning that these rankings could be a moot point a week from now if Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell go out and sign with somebody else. Say they go out and they sign with the Atlanta Braves.
Well,
you bump them up the list a little bit.
But I'm going to tell you right now, the chances of, if you look at those two players, it's funny that you say that. You look at those two players that you just mentioned. The chances of either or both of those two players signing with any of the 5 teams or 6 teams that we've mentioned so far is pretty high. It's pretty high.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about the Yankees, the Braves.
Tampa Bay even.
The Braves for Keuchel, Baumgartner. That's where you want to look into the Braves coming up here into the season and into the trade deadline. You want to look at the Braves potentially adding maybe a lefty, but adding an arm. I don't think that the Braves are done. I know we're ranking off seasons, but I don't think the Braves are done completing their team. You're going to still see some movement there. But any one of these teams could be adding still. And maybe it's a mystery. Maybe it's another team, a team that we haven't talked about. But what you would expect right now is a Keuchel and a Kimbrell. That's going to be pieces to put someone over. Yeah. They're not going to be pieces that somebody just signed.
Gio Gonzalez is another one that's still out there, too.
And that's going to be maybe a piece. The Yankees were talking about being in on him as soon as things didn't look so good for Luis Severino and CeCe Sabathia. What you're looking at is probably not a Kansas City Royals going out there and making a splash for Dallas Keuchel or Craig Kimbrell. That's not going to...
Or the Chicago White Sox.
That's not going to make the White Sox win this year either. So I think those guys are going to sign with teams that are going to look to win now. So interesting. This is the second or third time that we've brought up the fact that there is still all-stars sitting out there. For the longest time, all the way up until maybe it was the second week of February, and you and I were talking, we shared that article. I forgot who wrote it, but somebody wrote an article. They tracked the wins for all of the free agents. If they assembled a team out of the free agents, they were looking at like an 88-win team and an 89-win team. That would have been like good for 6th or 7th in Major League Baseball with just free agents. Crazy what we saw this offseason. But without further ado, number one, we have a tie at number 1. Both NL East teams. I'm going to go with the Phillies, and you're going to go with the...
I'm going also the Phillies here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I thought we had the Phillies and the New York Mets.
No, I didn't have the Mets on my list.
Oh, all right.
I applaud the moves they have made, but I didn't have them on my list. Good. I have the Philadelphia Phillies on my list.
I thought that you had the Mets.
Now, there's a team that makes sense, too, for going out. I mean, sure, they have Diaz, but imagine that team went out and did get Kimbrell or brought in Keuchel, as a little bit more insurance for starting pitching.
I would like
it might not make a ton of sense on the surface, but if that price comes down enough,
Vargas for the Mets,
right? If that price comes down,
maybe
enough,
even more than Matz. Although Matz has been looking okay.
Yeah, but Matz gets hurt all the time,
yes.
and somebody in that rotation is going to get hurt. It happens in every single rotation. You already see it with the Yankees, with Severino being a little banged up and CeCe having some scares over the offseason. You're not going to go through a whole season with your same 5 starting pitchers. Nobody ever does that. And Dallas Keuchel being still on the market, or Gio Gonzalez, still an upgrade for a team like the Mets. I had the Mets at 8th on my list, actually, and that is, again, no disrespect. That's still a winning offseason.
Yeah.
The stuff Brody has done there, BVW, we talked about at the beginning of the show. Great job so far. Taking on Cano's contract is iffy for me. I criticized it at the time. Getting Diaz is excellent and worth the move if you're the Mets. But they didn't do quite enough as far as player transactions at the end of last year, which is kind of how I cheated with the Rays, and in the offseason to justify them being up that high on my list. But
well, I'll tell you what, coming into the year...
That's one of the reasons why I said right before we got to this one, hey, this list could be changing within a week. You just don't know.
Listen, prospects are looking good right now for the New York Mets, to where they really limped through the entire season last year. To come into the season with a healthy DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, who knows, maybe a Keuchel, but that bullpen with Diaz, Familia, Lugo, Gesellman, Wilson, Jed Lowry, Rosario, Robinson Cano, Todd Frazier, Michael Conforto, Nimmo, Lagares.
Yeah, and I like the Wilson Ramos move, bringing him in.
Wilson Ramos. There's another. I forgot about that move too. Maybe a healthy Travis d'Arnaud. Who knows? The Mets made some moves.
Props to them.
You know,
I'm not trying to.
I don't have them on my list either. I thought you had them at number one because you talked about the Mets off season so much, all off season.
Sure,
I thought you had them at number one. But for me, I got the Phillies at number one.
I could easily, if this was most intriguing or interesting off seasons, the Mets could be up there, right at the top of the list because of the Kimbrel and Cano move, Diaz and Cano move, and all those moves you just named. It must have been a really exciting, refreshing off season for Mets fans. So that's what we'll do. They're not on our list, but we give them a charge.
Yeah, you get a charge. The Mets get a charge. So let's talk about the Phillies offseason and why we got them ranked number one. You alluded to it earlier. They had a former MVP and Andrew McCutchen. They had Bryce Harper, another former MVP. So 2 former MVPs. Gene Segura, who almost won a batting title last year. To add to Cesar Hernandez and Hoskins and Michael Franco and Odubel Herrera. They had Real Muto in the offseason. They had Robertson in the offseason to go with Dominguez and Neris and Nishik.
And Cesar Hernandez is a decent second baseman. He's one of the holdovers from last year.
You're looking at Scott Kingery being your utility guy, playing in the outfield, playing every spot in the infield. Or at least 3 spots. I don't think Kingery plays first base, but Rhys Hoskins, an emerging young stud hitter, home run pop. It's a pretty formidable lineup. They've made themselves from to go along with Nola Arrieta and Pivetta and Eflin and Vincent Velasquez, and maybe they need some more rotational depth. But I think that they've made themselves a playoff team. And again, we're going to get into our predictions in the next show, but I think that they've solidified themselves as a playoff team. Vegas seems to think so.
Yeah, and we'll see how things work out with their starting pitching. But even the bottom end of that starting of that rotation, loaded with upside. You look at your Eflins and Pivettas and Velasquez, and they may have not had awesome years last year, but there is a lot of upside there. If 2 out of 3 of those guys pan out to meet what their potential is for this season, they're in pretty darn good shape there already. And you could look and see them go out and maybe add another arm there too. The offseason isn't over yet, and once we get into the regular season, we'll have the usual trade deadline acquisitions and all sorts of other ways to improve their team.
Well, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to put Keuchel on the Phillies, and that will solidify their number one position anyway. I'm going to put Keuchel on the Phillies. I think that's the next domino or the next chip to fall. It makes the most amount of sense for anybody on the list that we've had so far is for the Phillies to go strengthen that rotation and really make themselves the favorites in that division. You're up against 2 formidable pitching staffs in that division. And not to be outdone or not to be, left off the list or honorable mention, I did have Washington really close, go out and sign Patrick Corbin. But Washington's offseason to me is a failure. You fail to keep Bryce Harper around.
Exactly. I couldn't put him on the list because of that reason alone.
Yep, that's a reason for me not getting
I believe they did sign, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they signed Yasmani Grandal. Did he go to the Nationals?
No, right. Yasmani Grandal went to the Brewers.
Okay.
They brought in Kurt Suzuki, I believe, into Washington. They failed. This wasn't a good offseason for the Nationals. I didn't have them close up to the list, but only for the Corbin deal and now parading out their 3 really awesome starters at the top of your rotation. Anytime you can go Scherzer, Strasburg, and now Corbin, pretty good, right?
It's good, right?
Yeah, it's good, right? So Washington's going to hang around with that pitching staff.
They were a team that has been mentioned about a potential Craig Kimbrel destination as well. People are refuting those rumors. So
Peter Kimbrel and Jeffress?
Oh, I'm talking about the Nationals.
Oh, I thought you said the Brewer team. I'm sorry.
That would be
sick.
Insane. Just bring the bullpen in the 4th inning at that point.
Yeah, like the Yankees can do. But I like that. I like the list. It's a solid 7th inning stretch to start the season. You know, it's the first one. Everybody knows the rules, right?
That's right.
So that's it. It's a 7th inning stretch. My favorite segment in the show. We get to hear Anthony Colenzo's voice as well at the beginning of it. Always nice to hear the amigo. Moving on, we're going to move on. You know, listen, I just want to...
Speaking of amigo, tomorrow is... we got to mention tomorrow's 311 day. You got your 311 orange shirt on. I know that's one of your favorite bands, but happy early 311
not
day.
Not to the level of the amigo.
Happy early 311 day to Amigo. 311 day Eve, I guess it is.
That's
right?
310
is 311 day Eve.
It is.
And more importantly, a early happy birthday to my wonderful wife, Andrea. Her birthday is on 311 day.
That's right. She is a 311 baby.
She is.
Right. That's cool. We got to give her a charge.
Yeah, she deserves a whole bunch of those with how much of a trooper she has been this weekend, making sure to completely disinfect our house after a rough bout with the stomach bug with the poor kids. But they are doing much better, and she has been a trooper, and we're ready to celebrate her birthday along with 311 Day tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Andrea. From the baseline. All right, so really quick, I want to drop, what we're going to be looking at the next couple of weeks here. Next week, like we said, we got our fantasy draft coming up. Stick around come around for the shenanigans. Watch us. We're going to be doing 25 rounds, 10 guys each. It's 250 names that you get to hear a little bit about. Might be something good, might be something bad, but 250 names. We're going to eat some awesome food from
it's going to be a long broadcast, but pop in and out of it when you got a couple minutes and you want to see what's going on.
That's
you want to see what hilarity is ensuing, what Chris Pauly is up to, and what who Robbie Danger's picking in the first round, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, lots of characters.
There's always some laughs.
And then the following week, SPG and I are going to be back with episode 2 of season 2, and we're going to be doing our previews.
Yeah.
Our season previews. We're going to run down. We're going to give our predictions. We'll play a little over-under with the Vegas odds.
Now an annual tradition of ours, the second annual over-under.
Over-under, Vegas odds, over-under. We're going to do all 30 teams this year. We did. We had some on the head, and some were a little off, but that wasn't our doing.
We'll get through every single team, and we'll keep our explanations to a minimum. We might throw in a minute or so on certain teams that might deserve the extra discussion, but yeah, we'll blow right through them, and we'll log those and cycle back to that down at the back end of the season.
We're not afraid to call ourselves out. That's for sure. When we're wrong, we're wrong.
That's right.
When we're right, we're going to tell you we're right, too. I mean, it's just the way it goes. But, yeah, so episode 2, we're going to be doing our little over-under with the Vegas odds and giving our predictions. We will give our predictions for postseason awards as well, our MVPs, our Cy Youngs. We're going to give it all to you. We're putting ourselves out there in episode 2. But next week, fantasy baseball draft. It's going to be fun. Hope you come around and check it out. But right now, we're going to get into the close of the show and on the list that nobody wants to be on.
This is probably, we said the 7th inning stretch. No, this stretch was our favorite part. This is, if that is true, if the 7th inning stretch is our favorite, which it is, at least for me, then out of the baseline is second place, a pretty solid, easy second place for me.
It's out of the baseline, guys.
So who is leading off or out of the baseline for season 2?
Leading off.
Now batting for the New York Yankees, the shortstop, number 2, Derek Jeter.
Yeah, number 2, Derek Jeter. No, he's not leading off.
No, he's not.
We're going to lead off with here. We're going to lead off with a Washington Post journalist, Mr. Greenberg, Mr. Neil Greenberg. Please come out to play. Neil Greenberg in November of 2017, November 2017, wrote an article for the Wa Post detailing how $500 million was and is an appropriate amount to spend on free agent Bryce Harper. Now, he goes into some things that I'm not even going to detail here. But he does say that I get $500 million is a lot of money, even in today's free agent environment. But if there's a player worth that sort of investment, it's a hitter like Bryce Harper. Fast forward to February of 2019, a mere 16, 17 months removed from making that statement about $500 million going to Bryce Harper. To earn the richest contract in MLB history, there simply should be a greater certainty of production, and that's something that Harper has yet to show at an elite level. Well, which one is it? Which one is it, Neil Greenberg? He's worth $500 or he hasn't shown it at an elite level? Using that 2019 estimate as our starting point, Harper's 13-year value could carry a price tag, or should carry a price tag, of $278.7 million. He depreciated him like $189 million in a season and in an offseason because he signed with the Phillies. So in 2017, he's worth $500 million to the Washington Nationals. But in 2019, he is not worth 13 years and $330 million to the cross-division rivals.
And you just said that we are ready to admit when we are wrong, and I would expect that with a professional journalist as well. But apparently he completely changed his story. He had a pretty strong stance on it a few years ago.
Oh, no. He said, it is clear to anyone who has read both articles. Well, I read both articles. And the only thing that was clear was the flip-flop. So Neil Greenberg of the Wa Post.
You're out!
You are.
You're out of the baseline.
Out of the baseline. My first OTBL of the year, and it feels so good. SPG, who you got, OTBL?
All right, I got one. It's a guy that his name changed in the offseason, and we don't talk about him a ton on this show beyond throwing his name out there here and there because he doesn't play at all, because he's always hurt. Oh. And his name is now Jacoby Ellsbury.
Yeah, that's another rule change that we forgot to talk about.
There's a rule change. There is no more DL.
No more DL. It's called the IL.
So now it's Jacoby Ellsbury.
So Jacoby Ellsbury.
Jacoby Ellsbury, he's hurt. What a surprise.
Jacoby Ellsbury's hurt?
So he had hip surgery last year in August.
Jacoby Ellsbury makes Greg Bird look like Lou Gehrig.
He does. He seriously does. He hasn't played a game in, a year and a half? Probably longer than that. Probably close to 2 years.
I'm sorry, boss. I have the plantar fasciitis.
So he has a hip injury last year, and he has surgery for it in August. And he missed the entire season. And all of a sudden,
it's just the way they tell the story.
He starts rehabbing from his hip injury, and he develops plantar fasciitis, and now hasn't stepped on a field yet, but he is supposedly expected to join the team here next weekend, actually. So we might have one of those rare sightings, even more rare than seeing like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster in recent years. Jacoby Ellsbury might actually be on a baseball field somewhat by Jacoby Ellsbury's standards, Ellsbury, healthy, I guess. So over-under on his next injury if he comes back next weekend.
April 11th.
I was going to say maybe a week, 2 weeks. Might not even make it out of March. We'll see. So Jacoby Ellsbury, he's out of the baseline, making all that money. They still owe him over $47 million.
Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
And don't think for a second that contract wasn't in the back of Brian Cashman's mind when he was seeing the terms, especially how many years that Machado and Harper wanted. Anyways, we'll see. We'll see if we really see this mysterious, mythical Jacoby Ellsbury with pinstripes on and cleats on and a bat in his hands soon. They're saying maybe, but
SPG,
I'm skeptical.
That's an interesting segue. Speaking of pinstripes, My second and last OTBL for Season 1, Episode 1.
And I share this one with you as well. This will be my last, and I completely 100% agree with where you're going with this.
SB Nation. You guys are familiar with SB Nation out there?
A lot of great content on that site.
Outstanding content on SB
all
Nation.
Sports. All teams, all
everything.
sports.
And every team, that's the thing. It's like you said, all teams. Every team gets a page.
A great page, too. I haven't seen a bad one yet. Well, maybe. Maybe I've seen one bad one.
There's one. And it's Pinstripe Alley. Pinstripe Alley, as you can assume, Pinstripes, is the Yankees' official SB Nation page. Pinstripe Alley. Now, I've called them out of the baseline before, but not nearly to the extent that we're going to do today.
Never anything as egregious is the reason this time around.
Two reasons now. Today, they just put me over the edge. Today, they wrote an article. Here's a small suggestion for changing the Yankees' uniforms. What?
When your name is Pinstripe Alley, it's based on the Yankees' uniforms. You want to change the Yankees' uniforms.
They wear the solid gray with the block letters on the road, and they wear the pinstripes with the interlocking NY at home, and that's the way it is, and there's no names on the back. That's the way it is. That's the way it will always be, Pinstripe Alley. But it's not even for that. Last week, Pinstripe Alley, a blogger who, honestly, I should look him up right now because he should go out of the baseline just by himself as well. But last week, Pinstripe Alley wrote an article about Troy Tulowitzki, essentially praying for him to get hurt.
Hoping that he would injure himself so they can say they were right about Manny Machado not signing with the New York Yankees. Because whoever this kid is that sits in his mom's basement and writes these Pinstripe Alley articles, it's more important for him to be right. Again, the topic of somebody admitting when they're wrong comes up. And they just pounded that Manny Machado to the Yankees story every single day. And how about the what's the other one that they post almost like copy paste every couple months?
Oh, the Brett Gardner.
Is it time for a Brett Gardner resurgence or whatever that is?
Brett Gardner. Here's your daily reminder that Brett Gardner is undervalued as a Yankee.
I made the comment, made the joke to you that it is Brett Gardner's mom that runs that page. But
I want to find this
over and over again.
I want to find this article here because it's important.
The Troy Tulowitzki, they hope he gets hurt article.
Yes. Yeah, we got to take a look at this because this is bad. And then there's another guy. Actually, you know what? While we're in the midst of looking for that, I want to call out. I just looked up something else. I'm going to call another guy out after this. But let me look on our page here. You just don't wish injury to prove your point,
especially a player. I mean, ever. You're right. Especially ever. But you're talking about a player that plays for the team you supposedly are a fan of or you cover. And to prove your own point, it's disgusting. And there's no place in wishing somebody to get hurt. Just because you want to prove that you were smart and the Yankees didn't sign Machado and you're going to point a finger and say, see, I told you so. Very irresponsible journalism, and they deserve to be trashed for it.
So here it is. The tagline on Facebook saying, this is totally going to happen, isn't it? And the headline on the article saying, a theory of how Troy Tulowitzki's 2019 will play out. Well, let's read this theory by Matt Ferenchik. Matt Ferenchik. So right now, Matt Ferenchik, you're out of here. You're out of the baseline, Matt Ferenchik. Terrible. Maybe things will go swimmingly for the New York Yankees shortstop, or maybe this will happen. And then he goes on to detail how Troy Tulowitzki starts off a little hot because he's back and he's happy. And he starts off hot in April. and that by May he's slowing down and he gets injured. He injures his ankle. He even makes up an injury. And then in June, bothered by ankle troubles, Tulowitzki goes into a slump. His OPS for the month is under 400. In July, it turned out the ankle injury was a bit more serious. In August, his OPS plus has dropped below 100 points. Luckily for Yankees, Gregorius is back. With the season wrapping up in September, the Yankees are headed to the playoffs, but Tulowitzki will not be joining the team. His season is shut down due to another unnamed injury. You've injured him twice. Matt Ferenchek, I understand that things were slow and the Yankees didn't sign Machado, and you needed to pump that as much as you could. But to write this article, to even think this article on your can while you're taking a shit is wrong. And it deserves to be called out. So Matt Ferenchek, please stop blogging right now. Relinquish your blogger's credentials at Pinstripe Alley because
Just a bit outside.
you're out.
Tried the corner and missed.
You're out. You tried the corner and you missed. You're out of the baseline. And Pinstripe Alley, you're
out of the baseline.
You're out of the baseline too. How dare you allow this to be penned and written? And it doesn't matter if I read this on an Indians blog site or a Pirates blog site or any other blog site, I would go just as nuts. But the fact that this is something that gets pounded into my face every day as a Yankees fan, Matt Ferenchek, you're out of the baseline, dude. Stop writing.
Out of here.
So that had me a little bit in a bunch. Sorry about that. I got a little animated there. But come on. You've invented injuries for this man. A man that worked hard to get back to where he is.
Mythical ankle injury that they are hoping will happen so they can say, see,
yeah, he invented the injury. It's not as if like he's coming in and he's got an nagging ankle injury. It's you said he got hit by a pitch or he fouled a pitch off, whatever it was. He invented an injury for Troy Tulowitzki and put him out for the season. Terrible journalism. Terrible fan page. You call this a fan page? Last one.
What you got?
I don't know. Says it doesn't exist anymore.
It was that bad, huh?
It was that bad.
It doesn't even exist anymore.
404 does not exist. Wow.
It would be nice if that's how out of the baseline worked, is all of a sudden whatever we threw out of the baseline just doesn't exist anymore.
Barstool Sports must have got some heat for this because this was a White Sox scout evaluating Bryce Harper.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
during JUCO. It was JUCO pre-draft scouting.
Official scouting reports that were leaked from when he was in JUCO. I did see that.
Fake hustle. Fake hustle. He called him a fake hustler.
That's one guy. We let off the show with this, but so we won't get too into it. There's one guy you cannot criticize his hustle. You cannot criticize Bryce Harper's hustle.
No.
If you
35.
do, you could say he over hustles and he gets himself hurt. There is no fake hustle about it.
This guy was so far off the mark. Hitting 35, future 55. Power 35, future 65. Speed 30. They timed him slower than like NFL linemen in the 40. That's what they had him at. Crazy. So my big bitch about this one was, my big beef with it was that 5 years after this scouting report, where essentially this guy had him as not worthy of the number one pick, certainly, but he had him as something that would get graded as a very late round pick, maybe not even draftable. Somebody be riding the bus leagues 5 years later, if they're even still in baseball. And 5 years later, Bryce Harper won the National League MVP.
And not even just that, but a year or two later, he was the number one pick in the draft.
Number one pick in the draft and won the National League MVP 5 years after this scouting report. How bad did you miss on the scouting report that you got him basically essentially as somebody who's going to be out of baseball in 5 years and he won the NL MVP? How do you miss that one? So, unnamed White Sox scout, because I don't feel like looking for the article anymore.
You're out of here.
You're out of here. We'll throw you out at a later date to be determined.
That wraps up our Out of the Baseline, I think, for episode
OTBL.
That was a pretty good collection of out of the baseliners.
Let me tell you, that felt good to kick the dust off here today.
It did.
Season 2,
we're shaking off that rust.
Shaking off the rust.
This is spring training for us too. It's we're gonna have a great season for you. And
it is spring training for us.
This is kind of spring training for us, and getting in here and going through and setting up and getting the podcast and video ready to go. And I had to think about it for a little bit before it came back to me. But you know what? It's like riding a bike, JP. And we are back for a great season. And a couple other notes around baseball before we do go. A-Rod is engaged to J-Lo.
Nice. Jenny from the block.
Jenny from the block.
He's
bringing another ring back to the Bronx.
Of that block up, but it's good.
Bringing another ring back to the Bronx there. A-Rod.
Yeah, another one.
It happened at the very tail end of our last season, but I wanted to mention Frank Robinson again and losing such a giant in baseball and everything that he has done. The first African American manager and one of the greats, Hall of Famer. Crossed barriers and broke some ground, and you got the picture hanging up right behind you of Frank.
Big Frank.
Rest in peace, Frank, and he was one of the greats for sure. And another one of the greats, Hall of Famer, Tom Seaver. I don't know if you saw, but he was diagnosed with dementia. So the baseline is thinking about you, Tom.
No longer making
Tom
public
Seaver
appearances
in family. So another one of the greats too. He was an amazing and deservedly Hall of Fame player. So our thoughts to you, to the Seaver family. I think that's about a wrap. Check out our website, disruptionnetwork.net, and all of our stuff. Go back and check out last season. See what we were talking about. See what we might have been right about, wrong about. Check out all the other shows on the Disruption Network website and all over. Anywhere you can get our podcast and content. Check out EC Radio every weekday, every Monday through Thursday, actually.
You know what you're listening to.
At 3 o'clock. That's right. Home Free with Adeline Van Dyke, Wrestle Fandom Radio, The D-Line. I could go on and on. Ease Beats and Bizz. It's just so much great content.
DisruptionNetwork.net. And also,
there's a new show coming on, too.
If you're watching us on Facebook right now, you're watching us through the Disruption Network app. But if you're watching us anyplace else, go to Disruption Network's Facebook page. They got a contest going on right now. Contest going on all March long. They're running
awesome prizes.
Their Spring Forward contest. The first package was an awesome Saranac prize pack and some tickets to shows, and this one is from Utica Hemp and O'Baby's. Like we said, O'Baby's Gourmet Sandwich Shop. It's a golden ticket. It's free sandwiches for a year.
We just did some Saranac ones.
Free sandwiches for a year. So check out Disruption Network's Facebook page for more details on that.
More details coming soon on our contest for Hall of Fame tickets. They could be yours. All you got to do, a couple clicks of a mouse. So stay tuned for details on that. We will make sure to get info posted for that. And shout out to our sponsors, Nye VW out in Rome. If you need a vehicle, go see them out there. Mention Disruption Network sent you. You can call them at 315-337-8900. And, great place to go get a vehicle. And they'll help you out. They'll take care of you. And make sure you mention the Baseline Disruption Network. Once again, shout out to EJA Moving Company. Professional moving services, the best around in the central New York region. They will help you out no matter what your moving need is, and they will take care of you. So give them a call at 315-335-0516. That's 315-335-0516 for EJA Movers.
That's it. We are good.
Episode 1 in the books.
In the books. So we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Right around. So next Sunday afternoon for our Electric Company Fantasy Baseball Draft live.
The 16th annual, I believe.
16th annual. We're going to see if somebody can unseat you from the fantasy head of the table. Who knows? We're going to see. But for now, we're done. And we're going to see you next week for our fantasy draft, and then the week after that for episode 2. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Right. We're out.
We are out.